It happened at 2:13 p.m., Earth Standard Time. From the ice fields of Siberia to the slums of Neo-Johannesburg, children simply vanished. No trace, no warning, not a scream, not a flash, just sudden, irreparable absence. Parents dropped toys mid-play, teachers froze mid-roll call. Entire schools became tombs of soundless grief. In New Vesta, Wren Kale had been walking her niece Lila from school. They were laughing. Lila was asking about the old war scars on Wren's hands, when the air changed. A static tension pulled at her teeth. She blinked. Lila was gone. Only her pink shoe remained, still warm. Above the skyline, a jagged shimmer split the sky, like glass stretched too thin. Wren stared into it, eyes burning. Something moved behind the shimmer, huge, crawling, alive. She picked up the shoe with trembling fingers. "You took her," she whispered. "I'm coming for her. I'm coming for all of you." They called it the 213 effect. It wasn't a local event. It was global. At the same second, every child under 12 vanished, and the world changed. Clocks froze for 3.6 seconds. Satellite feeds glitched, showing an unregistered frequency pulsing in a waveform no one could decode. Governments blamed enemies, cults blamed sin, and scientists blamed quantum resonance. But no one had an answer. Only Wren Kale and a few survivors across scattered outposts noticed the shimmer in the sky, an arc of iridescent distortion hanging like a wound just above the clouds. She wasn't a mother, but she had been a soldier, and war had a smell. This smelled like prelude. 3 nights after the vanishings, the radios started talking. Not broadcasts, whispers. Beneath the hiss of dead air, voices twitched into life. Broken children's laughter, a lullaby backwards. Then, something clearer, a single sentence on loop. "They are not dead. They are dreaming for us." The frequency couldn't be jammed. It pulsed through every band, even those unplugged from power. Wren's comm implant bled static into her sleep, and always that voice. Not a child's voice, but something that mimicked it. Wrong cadence, hollow tone, like an AI taught to pretend it cared. Wren didn't sleep after that. She started building a list of people who still remembered their children's names. The first side effect was forgetting. Not everyone, but enough to notice. Neighbors forgot they ever had kids. Couples swore they never wanted them. Entire birth records vanished from hospitals. It was a slow unraveling of memory, like rot in a root system. Wren tattooed Lila's name on her forearm with a hot needle, just in case. She found others online, encrypted forums, dark web grief hives, where memory still held. They called themselves the Anchored, a scientist in Oslo, a priest in Mexico City, a hacker in Tokyo, and a childless woman with combat training and no patience for mercy. "If they can take the world's children," Wren typed, "they can bleed." A tear opened near Nevada, a shimmering vertical gash in the air, pulsing like a living wound. It hung 3 miles above ground, silent and motionless. Anything that flew near it vanished. Drones, birds, a jet. Gone, with a flicker of distortion and a sound like screaming inside your own bones. The government quarantined the area, called it a spatial anomaly, but satellite images leaked. Through the shimmer, someone had captured a glimpse, a vast alien landscape stretching into darkness, and small human figures walking in orderly circles. Children, always children, walking, never stopping. Wren stared at the image for 6 hours. Then she booked a flight to Nevada. Wren met him on the outskirts of the Nevada quarantine zone. He called himself Calder. Skin pale, eyes trembling in the light, bones faintly shimmering under translucent flesh, like glass filaments twisted into a man's shape. He wasn't entirely human anymore. He'd been near the tier too long. "I heard them," he said. "The children. But they don't talk like children. They echo, like they've been rewritten." He showed Ren a crude map, coordinates where the shimmer bled lower, close enough to breach. "If you go through, don't think of anyone you love," Calder warned. "They eat memory first." Then he smiled too wide and walked into the desert. Breaking into the zone wasn't hard. Staying sane inside it was. Ren's descent began just outside the military fence, in a night that didn't quite end and a wind that carried no scent. GPS went dead. Time stuttered. Her shadow sometimes moved before she did. But she followed Calder's path to a dead canyon that pulsed with violet light. There, the shimmer touched ground, fluid, vertical, pulsing like something breathing. She activated her tether drone, injected memory stabilizers, and stepped through. Her last thought before crossing was Lila's laugh. It was a mistake. The shimmer twisted it, and she came through weeping, though she couldn't remember why. The world beyond wasn't a world, it was a wound. Red sky stretched like torn muscle, and the ground pulsed underfoot, soft and warm. Towers floated above like bone chandeliers, dripping black mist that hissed against her skin. The air tasted like battery acid and roses. In the distance, thousands of children moved in spirals, silent, barefoot, faces blank. They were alive, yes, but something had been hollowed out. Ren saw Lila among them, her eyes wide, unblinking. She called her name. Lila turned, but didn't recognize her. A tall figure loomed from the mist, all joints and jagged light. It spoke without lips. "She's dreaming now, you shouldn't be here." "You..." Ren ran. The terrain wasn't real. She understood that now. It responded to thought, reshaping into tunnels of flesh and impossible rooms lined with spinning faces. A corridor narrowed until it became a throat, and she slid into it, swallowed by the world itself. In the core of that place, she saw it, the architect, a being of shifting teeth and starlight, perched in a nest of memories. It opened its mouth, and voices poured out, millions of children's voices speaking in perfect unison. "We dream for balance. Your world is a mistake." Ren screamed back, "Then you've made enemies of all our mistakes." She should have died. But death bent here. Time was clay. Reality cracked. When Ren came to, her hand clutched something impossible. A knife made of light and bone, humming with names. Lila's name burned at its center. One of the other dream children had placed it there, a girl with her mouth sewn shut, who smiled and vanished. Ren didn't ask questions. The knife felt alive in her grip, drawn toward the shimmer core, where the architect nested. She set out, slicing through the dream flesh of the world. Behind her, more children began to stir, blinking as if waking for the first time in years. One word echoed from the knife. "Fight." The moment Ren stabbed the dream flesh, the sky screamed. Not thunder, not anything natural, but a shriek like steel tearing through bone. The world convulsed, trees wilted, towers shattered, and the endless spiral of marching children staggered, some falling, others suddenly blinking. Ren realized then, the architect hadn't just taken them, it had bound them to the dreamscape's stability. Every child was a node in its vast machine of thought. Killing it would collapse the world. Saving them meant breaking it apart. She didn't hesitate. She whispered Lila's name and cut again. This time, the horizon bled fire. In the ruins of a half-melted building shaped like a screaming face, Ren found the librarian, a creature stitched from children's memories, eyes made of spinning clocks, mouth brimming with forgotten lullabies. It watched her knife and trembled. "You shouldn't have that. it said. That blade is a relic from before the cut. Ren demanded answers. The librarian hissed and vomited images into the air. Children wired into towers, dreaming not for themselves, but for a civilization too ancient to die. They use your young like batteries. You call them monsters, but you're not the first species to make war over children. Ren raised the knife. We'll be the last. The deeper she moved through the architect's world, the louder the names became. At first, it was a whisper, then a chant, then a deafening roar. Names screamed by invisible mouths, all belonging to the stolen children. It cracked Ren's mind. She fell to her knees in a field of glass grass, bleeding from her ears. Her own name began to fade, syllables sliding off her memory. But the knife, Lila's name, anchored her. With shaking hands, she etched it into her skin again. Every letter rewove part of her identity. The choir faded. She stood, breath ragged. If names were power, then she would carry every single one of them back. At the center of the architect's domain was a structure unlike anything Ren had imagined. A living engine the size of a city, built of bone, wire, and dreaming skulls. Children's minds fed it, cycling memory into raw psychic power. From this machine, the tear opened into earth. Ren saw herself reflected in one of its mirrored veins, older, twisted, full of wires. A future version? A warning? She didn't know. She walked toward the core. The air grew heavy. Every step bled a memory. Her first kiss, her mother's laugh, Lila's voice, all drained into the machine. But the knife still pulsed. A single thought remained. End it. She drove the knife into the machine's heart. Not once, over and over. Each stab unstitched part of the dream. The world around her fractured like glass under heat. The architect descended, now in full form, no longer beautiful, but raw and exposed. A being of dead suns and weeping light. It screamed not in pain, but disappointment. You've undone eons, it spat. Ren didn't respond. She dragged the blade across its core, and its blood sprayed upward, dissolving the towers above. Children began to fall, softly, slowly, wrapped in light. They didn't wake. Not yet. But they were free. She would wake them, or die trying. The architect's death wasn't clean. As its body unraveled, the dream realm began collapsing. Towers twisted into thorns, sky folding into molten shadow. Gravity snapped sideways. Ren stumbled through a crumbling corridor of thought, children raining gently from broken clouds. Some opened their eyes. Others only wept. "Where are we?" one whispered. Ren didn't know. She barely remembered who she was. Reality trembled. A deep hum, low, ancient, rippled through the fabric of the dying world. It wasn't over. The tear was still open, and something was coming through. Something bigger than the architect. Something that built it. It didn't have a shape, just the idea of one. Ren felt it behind the veil, clawing at the opening between worlds. Where the architect ruled by order, this thing existed as chaos, raw, unfiltered want. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. Its presence warped memory, turned thoughts inside out. Ren clutched the blade, now cracked and leaking light, and screamed for the children to run. But there was no escape. Not in this place. Not yet. The oldest child, a boy with a voice like sandpaper, stepped forward and said, "It was never just our dreams. It's always been yours too." Then he pointed at Ren. "You opened the last gate." The children remembered. Slowly, painfully, they pieced themselves back together. Faces, families, fear. Some collapsed under the weight of what had been done to them. Others rose. With bloodied palms and hollow stares, they reached out, not to Ren, but to each other. And then they began to speak, their voices stitched into a wall of sound, pushing back the chaos, warping the realm in reverse. The dream world feared them now. Their collective memory, once a cage, had become a weapon. Ren stood in their center, blade raised, eyes burning. "You want dreams?" she shouted into the collapsing sky. "Here's one. We survive." The tear pulsed wildly, spewing flickers of both Earth and the other realm into each other. Forests blinked into neon ruins. Oceans hovered in sky. People screamed across worlds as the two realities began to merge. Ren gathered the children, those still conscious, still whole, and led them toward the source. "Back through the shimmer," she shouted. The blade, nearly dead, flared one last time, cutting a path through the fold. But as they ran, something grabbed her ankle. Not physical, but a memory. Her mother's hand. Her father's voice. The dream world didn't want to let her go. She'd taken too much of it with her. She dove through the tear carrying 2 unconscious children and 1 broken knife. The others followed, hundreds of them, naked, crying, real. The shimmer roared, trying to close, to consume, to punish. But Ren was done being punished. As the last child passed through, she turned and hurled the knife back into the dream. It detonated like a dying star. The tear shrieked, twisted, then collapsed. The sky healed, Earth groaned, and then silence. Ren lay in the sand outside Nevada, clutching Lila's hand. The girl opened her eyes and whispered, "You came." Ren smiled through blood. Always. Most of the children survived. Most. But not all. For every dozen that opened their eyes, 1 remained limp. Breathing, but unreachable. Comatose, mind still tethered to a realm that no longer existed. Doctors called it dream shock. Priests called it soul fracture. Ren just called it wrong. She visited them in makeshift clinics, converted hangars, underground wards. She whispered their names. She held their hands. Some twitched. One boy began humming a lullaby she'd only heard in the architect's lair. The war wasn't over. Not really. It had just shifted layers. What lives in dreams doesn't die easy, and it wasn't done with them. Governments denied the event. Media twisted it. Mass hallucination. Terror-induced psychosis. The children who returned were different. Quieter, older behind the eyes, sometimes speaking in languages no one had ever taught them. Those who remembered were labeled unstable. Ren was wanted in 12 countries. They erased footage, doctored satellite data, shut down forums. The official story died within weeks. But parents remembered. The anchored still whispered. And Ren? Ren was preparing. Because she saw what came through the tear in its final moments. Something still watching. Lila never cried. Not once. She spoke rarely, and when she did, her voice carried weight. "It's not over," she said one night, sitting beside Ren on the roof of a crumbling motel. "They didn't just take us. They seated us." She pointed to her chest. "There's something inside." "Not a parasite. A signal." Ren asked if it hurt. "No," Lila said, "but sometimes I hear the song, the one we marched to." She looked up. "It's getting louder." That night, Ren sat alone and sharpened a new blade. Not bone, not dream metal, just steel. Because if they came again, this time she'd be ready. It began in Antarctica. A crack in the ice that hissed music. Then one in low orbit. A satellite vanished, leaving behind a message. We saw you wake." The anchored came together, traveling in secret to where the shimmers bloomed. Ren found them there, armed, older, unshakable. "They're not invading this time," the Oslo scientist said. "They're calling us back." The children felt it too. Some stared at walls for hours. Some began drawing, maps of places that didn't exist. Yet. "It's not an attack," Ren whispered. "It's a harvest. The dream isn't done with Earth, and Earth may be dreaming back." Beneath New Vesta, in an abandoned subway line, something grew. A chamber of fused plastic and bone, humming with low static. Inside, cocoons, child-sized, pulsing. Lila led Ren there, eyes glazed. "They left part of themselves in us," she said. "We're not the only survivors." The cocoons trembled, some cracked open. Not children, not anymore. Limbs wrong, eyes too deep, dream spawn. Ren lifted her knife, then paused. They weren't attacking. They were waiting. She backed away slowly. Whatever they were, they remembered her. And they feared the blade. That meant they could be fought. Nations collapsed in silence. Those who tried to act vanished. Whole cities swallowed by quantum anomalies, sky storms, or plague sleep. New Vesta was quarantined after a child hummed a melody and caused every screen in a 10-mile radius to explode. The world's leaders chose fear over understanding. "Forget them," they told the world. "Forget the children. Forget what was taken." But forgetting is a choice Ren never had. She carved the names into walls, into knives, into her skin if she had to. She would not forget. And now, she had an army. The anchored went dark and underground. They built sanctuaries in old missile silos, in the bones of extinct cities. Ren trained them. Lila led them. They found others like her. Children returned altered but aware. They called themselves the Remembered. Each had something unique. Songs that broke machines, dreams that healed, or screams that killed. "They made us weapons," one boy said. "Let's return the favor." Ren wasn't sure if they were still human, but they were still hers, and the sky was bleeding again. It wasn't a war in the traditional sense. No armies, no borders, just eruptions of unreality, cities folding in half, dreams leaking into air, people rewritten mid-thought. The Remembered struck fast. Small cells, surgical memory bombs, psionic disruptions. Ren led from the front. The knife now spoke names when it cut. Every time she struck, a child awoke somewhere. Lila hovered above the battlefield, eyes burning like stars. "We are not your batteries," she told the sky. "We are your end." And the architect's masters, those who slept behind stars, finally took notice. It arrived without warning. A new star in the sky, bright, hungry, wrong. It pulsed with the rhythm of marching feet, the final invasion. But this time, Earth wasn't unprepared. The Remembered sang in unison. The anchored lit the sky with signal disruptors. Ren raised the knife, now carved with every stolen name, and whispered, "This is for all of them." The sky cracked. The star screamed. The song faltered. And the tear between worlds closed. Not from the inside, but from us. We made our own wall. With memory. With blood. With fire. It's been 3 years. The stars haven't returned. The sky is quiet. Most children sleep peacefully. Some don't sleep at all. But they are safe, for now. Ren still keeps the knife. It no longer glows. Lila teaches others how to resist dreams. And Earth has changed. It remembers. It fights back. They took our children. They tried to take our memory. Now they fear our dreams. And if they ever return, we'll be waiting.